We come all the way out here to film. I wanted to show you something really exciting, and we got here, and where there once was a shelter, there's now a big pile of sticks. I was walking past here a few days ago and I was reminded of Jesus being transfigured up the mountain. Jesus is up a mountain with Peter, James and John, and he's transfigured, he's changed, he glows absolutely white and shiny. And as I walked past this shelter that was, I was reminded of Peter saying to Jesus, should we build shelters so that we can stay? And Jesus sort of ignores Peter, and then God speaks and says how much he loves his son, and then the disciples fall down, oh my goodness, this is amazing, we've encountered the living God. And then Jesus says, let's just go down the mountain. And as I walked home from here and I was thinking about this shelter, the one that was there, I was reminded of Peter working out of his understanding, his Old Testament understanding. In the Old Testament, when you wanted to get to God, you went to the temple, and when you got to the temple, that's where God's presence was. And before the temple there was the tabernacle, the tent where God's presence dwelt. So Peter is saying, we have met God, we need a shelter, we need to bottle it, we need to take this presence and capture it. In contrast, Jesus says, no, let's go back into the world, we're going down the mountain and I'm going to pour God's presence out. We're out here enjoying our walk today. It's absolutely wonderful, glorious in the sunshine. Most of you watching this, hopefully all of you are at home, you're in lockdown, you can't get out, and that's so frustrating, isn't it? Imagine if someone said to you permanently, you have to stay at home, you cannot go out. That would be terrible. What's our mentality of God? Where does God live? Imagine if we seriously thought that God lived in our church buildings, that, you know, at the end of a Sunday morning you're shouting out, see you next week God, and you're locking the door, and then God puts his slippers on and puts his feet up and he waits for us till the next week. It'd be ridiculous. We would never believe that, we would never articulate that. But is that the way we really think? Are we more like Peter than we'd like to admit? Are we like saying, Jesus, we so found your presence in this building that we want to bottle you, we want to keep you here, rather than saying we want to pour out your presence? This lockdown has been so infuriating. We're feeling restricted, we love to be out there doing things. But is it teaching us something about who God is? That God is genuinely not confined to our buildings? How will our thinking shift as a result of not being able to gather for worship? Will we genuinely begin to shift in our thinking to think more of church, not just as gathered, but also when we're scattered as we are now in different places, we're still church, God is still at work. Rather than saying, Jesus, we want to build you a shelter and you're going to live there, saying, Jesus, how can we pour out your presence in our community and see you at work? I thank God for all that he has done in our church buildings. This isn't an anti-church building rant. God will work powerfully in those places, but equally he will work in the world around us. Will we be like Peter, bottling the presence, or will we be like Jesus saying, let's go out into the world and get on with it? Let's share the good news with the people around us. Let's not keep God's presence to ourselves.